Today I'm talking Love is Blind Season 7, Episode 11, and the main topic today will be Hannah and Nick, as they are the latest couple to fall apart. No surprise here, they've had a problem ever since they kind of first met each other because Hannah has many issues. Hannah truly deplorable, and I'm glad that I've basically been dragging her since episode 1 and all of her insecurities since episode 1. Hannah does not make much sense to me. She is so insecure and yet, for some reason, has a major superiority complex, and I am not sure how that actually works, but that's what she has. She thinks she's just above Nick. She thinks she's so much better than Nick. She talks to Nick like he's a child. And yes, Nick has growing up to do, as I've said before. He can grow as a person too, but Hannah doesn't seem to want to give him that chance to grow. And that's where a lot of their main issues are kind of coming from. It's, as I talked about the last episode where Nick was meeting up with the Katie girl again, I think that was her name, and they were having a good conversation because Katie was actually giving him positive reinforcement, which is something Hannah has never done this entire time. Hannah just shits all over him any chance that she gets, and that's clearly not working for Nick or their relationship, but that's the way Hannah approaches things because she thinks she's just so much better than Nick and just teaching Nick so much despite being like a year or two younger than Nick, but whatever. And so Hannah was feeling like Nick was flirting with Katie when the fact is they were just actually getting along because Katie's actually mature and Hannah is not. And then Hannah, after already consulting her friend, then Hannah and her friends meet Nick, and her friends too are acting better than Nick. And I want to actually call this a Gen Z issue, possibly. Dating in Gen Z seems like a mess. I don't know if it's because of dating apps or just social media in general, but there are a lot of people in that generation that seem to think they are just so much better than others and they just deserve so much in a relationship. And they don't either want to allow people to put in the work in their relationships or they just see themselves as superior and so they just leave a relationship early. And that's kind of what I saw happen here with Hannah. The most annoying part is seeing Hannah and her big back walking around acting superior to Nick. And in this episode, she was looking especially Chris from Family Guy-esque. Like, this episode proved I was right about that comparison. By the end of the episode, she was totally looking like Chris from Family Guy, which is another reason why I question why she feels so superior. And yes, I know that at the reunion she's going to be, she's on Ozempic. She's going to be skinnier. We'll talk about that when we get there. But at this point in the show, she still looks like Chris from Family Guy, and she's still acting so much better than Nick. And I just find it deplorable. So yeah, I don't know if it's her generation. I don't know if it's her age. I don't know if it's her insecurities. But I'm glad that Nick doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And Nick has work to do on himself. He needs to be more mature himself. I do agree with that. But Hannah was never truly going to give him the opportunity to attempt to do that. And making lists about everything that's wrong with Nick. And, she says she writes everything down so she can remember all the issues that she has with Nick. But, like, when you have a list of issues, it's kind of verbally abusive. That's kind of how Hannah came across this entire season with Nick because of her insecurities. She had to try and tear Nick down. And it really became verbal abuse by the end of it all, in my opinion. And she also has a lot in common with Tim, like I talked about in my last video, where Tim was saying how he wants a woman that pushes back at him, but at any time Alex pushed back, he was just so offended that she wouldn't let him talk. I think both Hannah and Tim have a superiority complex, and I'm dumbfounded as to why both of them have that, but it's painstakingly clear this is why they're single. They, and Hannah especially, Hannah way more than Tim. There's this weird dichotomy where she feels better than her, than Nick at least, or other people that she dates, in my opinion. And yet, all of her insecurities always ooze all over that relationship. The whole Katie situation proved it again, that her insecurities are very overwhelming. And I'm sorry that Nick had to be a part of this experiment, because I do believe that he came on the show for the right reasons. One of very few this season that seemed to actually come on the show for the right reasons. And he's like one of the basic guys that I've ever seen on a reality television show in recent years. He comes across like an average guy, just there to do average things. And that's why I feel like he was there for the right reasons, where others were just clearly not. And I guess that leads us to talk about Ramses and Marissa next, who I believe Marissa is also one of few that are there for the right reasons, who just actually wants to find someone to marry. Not so sure about Ramses anymore, but a lot of it is also the show's editing, that by the end of this episode, Ramses seems to be having cold feet, but we have no context how this came about, because this entire season has been a piss poor job of editing to give us more context on what's happening in arguments. And this wasn't an argument, but it was Ramses having cold feet, I guess. Maybe we don't need context. Maybe this is just something what happens as a wedding gets closer in this bad experiment of a show. I've had issues with Ramses. He's too rigid in his views and feeling like he has to stick to his views. And that has become annoying more and more throughout each episode. But as I said in my last video about episode 10, I do feel that Ramses and Marissa always talking through their problems and their differences is a good thing. But if they don't work out, I mean, I won't care, honestly, at this point. With all these couples, they're all not fun to watch at all. I still want to hope that they will work out, but maybe for Marissa's sake, it might be best that they don't work out, because Ramses has been a lot these past few episodes. I do wish we had more context on why Ramses suddenly has so much cold feet, because everything else we've seen at this point is, yeah, he has his own opinions on the way things should be done, or his own opinions on the military or whatever. But they always talk through it, and then Ramses always seems very gung-ho about getting married. That's been the entire thing that Marissa and him has said from the beginning together. They've seemed very excited about marriage, so Ramses having cold feet all of a sudden is actually very random, and it's another issue with the editing for me. Ashley and Tyler, I'm still just trying to figure out the Tyler situation with the children, because on the show, Tyler's excuse is that he was actually just a sperm donor and trying to help a friend out to have kids, which seems like a bad excuse, but Ashley seemed to buy that excuse. So, and now they're heading pretty easily towards marriage. But the rumors outside of the show is that an ex came out saying that Tyler's a deadbeat dad and that these are his children. And with the way the show edits, I don't know if that will actually ever come about in this last episode before the reunion or not. So we once again, we didn't have context on Ashley finding out about his kids in the first place, because we just saw them having a conversation after Ashley already found out. My biggest issue with the show is the editing and the producing to get us all these scenes of arguments or disagreements with no prior context to what came before it. It's just like they already know what happened and now we're talking about it, but we're not getting the initial conversation, which is why I'm just having a hard time caring about these two for many episodes now, even though they were one of my favorites at the beginning. I don't know if we're actually going to have any resolve to the Tyler kid drama until the reunion. So will the next episode, will it come out before the wedding? I have my doubts, but we'll see. I don't care about them, and I certainly don't care about Garrett and Taylor either, even though they are the most compatible and the couple most likely to get married. Garrett's been boring from the very beginning, and I mean, at least we have one couple that might make the experiment worthy of watching, but they're just so boring that it's still a TV show at the end of the day, and they're not really giving me much. They had the whole text drama last episode, but they seem to get over that pretty quickly. I have liked Taylor the entire time. I found out she's a Pisces gang. Let's go. But I guess all I can say about Garrett and Taylor is what I've been saying for a few episodes now. Good for them, but they're boring to watch. So that about sums up episode 11, going towards the finale in the coming days with the who will get married, who will not. Every couple has become very annoying to watch. Glad Hannah and Nick finally burned out so that Nick doesn't have to deal with Hannah's many issues. To reiterate one more time, yeah, Nick has some growing up to do, has some maturity. Like, he has things to learn in the real world, but they're not things that are like that hard to learn if he's going to actually put in the effort. But Hannah never gave him a chance to do that. She just shit all over him. She shit all over him the entire time they were together for so many different reasons. When he was having fun on the duck, when he's talking to her supposed best friend Katie from the pods, when he's meeting her friends. She just had an issue with everything. I don't know if it's because she just never liked him after meeting him for the first time or what. It's because of her insecurities is what it is. And somehow, even though she looks like Chris from Family Guy, she has a superiority complex too.